Hello everyone. Welcome to today's lesson. Today we're going to be talking about plot. A plot needs two things before it can happen: characters and a setting. Throughout the story, where things take place and who they happen to may change, but in order for things to happen, they need to happen to someone, somewhere. Before you begin talking about what happens, you must determine who things are happening to and where they are happening. To review, a character is a person that you follow as the story unfolds. This could be almost anyone, from a princess to a teacher, even to talking bunnies and crayons. A setting is where the story takes place. In some stories, these places are real, such as a school or a bedroom. Others are made-up lands full of magic, dragons, and aliens. What's important is that you know who is involved in your story and where they are before you find out what happens to them. The dictionary definition of a plot is the events of a play, novel, movie, or similar work devised and presented by the writer as an interrelated sequence. Putting that into simpler terms, plot is the events in a story that happens to characters and what order those events happen in. There are 5 parts of plot: exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and conclusion. These different labels are called plot points. Some of you may have seen one of these handy little diagrams. This is called a plot pyramid. The diagram helps us to identify the different plot points. Exposition is the beginning of the story, and it goes here on the plot pyramid. This is the part of the story where an author will tell you who the characters are and where the story takes place. It may tell you what a character looks like, where they live, and what they're doing. This part of a story is generally very short. For this, the story and the action and excitement are both very low. Rising action is the part of the story when a challenge is presented to the character and something needs to happen. It goes here on the plot pyramid. This is the part when the action of a story begins and the adventure starts. Lots of things may happen here, and its initial purpose is to drive the story toward a climax. In this, the action is high and the excitement is medium. The climax of the story is the most intense, exciting, or important part of the story. This may be where the challenge presented in the rising action reaches its peak, or it may be when the character finally discovers the solution to the problem at hand. It acts as a sort of turning point in a story, when things begin to change. A climax can be intense or scary, or it may be exciting and joyful, depending on what kind of story it is. It goes here on the plot pyramid. Here, the excitement and action are both very high. Falling action is when a character is putting the solution to the problem in motion. Action is medium in the story here, but the excitement is low. The problem that was presented in the rising action is being fixed, and the story is beginning to come to a close. Its place on the pyramid is here. The conclusion is the very last part of the story and goes here on the plot pyramid. This is the part of the story that ties up any loose ends. The problem has now been solved, or the story has reached a stasis, meaning a state of inactivity. The action and excitement are usually both low here. One extra tip for when you're drawing a plot pyramid: never put your exposition and conclusion at the same height. More than likely, a character will not end in the same place they began. This could be physically, emotionally, or mentally. Therefore, when drawing a plot pyramid, try to keep your exposition and conclusion at different heights. Of course, as with most things in writing and literature, there are always exceptions, as not every story is the same, especially those that end in cliffhangers. In fact, some stories may have plot pyramids that look like this or this, but most stories have a plot pyramid that looks something like this. In order to practice this idea, we are going to organize pieces of some children's stories into their respective parts of the plot pyramid, and then create a story of our own using the parts of plot. Here's what this will look like. Here I have a short story which reads, Ruby Rabbit was a very friendly rabbit, and she lived in a lovely home. She decided to throw a party for her friends and wanted to bake a cake. Ruby went to the fridge, and when she saw she didn't have any eggs. Ruby goes to the store to buy eggs, but as she does, she notices that she only has an hour before her party. She rushes home and begins baking her cake. It comes out of the oven just in time for her friends to arrive. Everyone at the party loves Ruby's cake, and they all have a great time. This sentence is our exposition. It tells us about our character, as well as where most of the story takes place. It goes here. These sentences are our rising action. The problem of not having eggs and running out of time presents itself, causing it to be rising action, a conflict to her party. It goes here. The climax would be in this sentence. With a time crunch in mind, this makes this part to be a turning point in the story, as well as a high excitement moment, so it goes here. This sentence is our falling action. The tension that is built up from before is released as Ruby's problem is resolved, so we'll put that here. Our conclusion is this last sentence. It wraps up the story nicely, telling us how the party went and that her effort in the story paid off. It goes here. Let's take a second to review the parts of plot one last time. An exposition is the very beginning of a story, where the characters and setting are introduced. The rising action is when a problem or conflict first arises for the characters to solve. The climax is the most exciting part of the story, and it acts as a turning point in the story. The falling action is the part of the story where the problem is in the process of being solved, and things are less exciting. The conclusion allows for all of the extra bits and pieces to be wrapped up in a neat little bow to finish off the story nicely. It often tells you what happens to the characters after the main issue is completely resolved. All of these 5 plot points together create one wonderful story. Now that we've discussed plot and its different parts, it's your turn to organize a story by its plot points. Good luck, everyone!